Although they did start working with the Beals revolver in the year of 1856, it would not be the same as what you think of the Remington New Model Army today.
And if you're like me, you're into the history stuff, the books, you like the guns, they're worth their weight in gold. Because the gun, it's fun to shoot, it's fun to point with, but without the story there, if you're a history person like I am, without the story, it really doesn't mean all that
The Ruger Security 9.
Can I redraw?
You already looked?
No.
You sure
Alright.
you did?
Now on 3.
Another pro, at least a pro to me, is these guns are kind of a project. I like to look at them as I'm getting an advanced kit build in the mail whenever I get one. So it's a project that you can go down the road and you can either leave it as
Most people believe that the Walker was Colt's first extent to a very, very large pistol, but it wasn't. This was. This is Colt's 1839 patent firearms revolving carbine pistol. It is massive.
Hello, everybody, and we are back. I hope you can hear us all loud and clear. We were going to have quite a few other people on tonight, but it just didn't work out for everybody, and that's fine. We have the core group, and we have AR American, too, so I'll make him feel welcome. We have Sheldon, the Saboteur, down here, and we have Duke from Tales of the Trails podcast and Duke Fraser Productions, and me, Garrett.
Garrett likes to put me on because I got to have one ugly guy.
That's not true at all.
There's a reason why my camera's off.
I was about to say, I don't think the audience has ever seen Sheldon yet.
Well, yeah, they have. They've seen a picture of him on Tales of the Trails.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Or is it Tales of the Trails or one of them?
All right. So, 4th of July is coming. What are we going to be shooting tomorrow, boys? Well, Duke said he is going to be working, so he's not going to be shooting. What are you shooting tomorrow, Sheldon?
Everything and anything.
Everything and anything? I thought you were going to go with that Lehman.
That takes a while. I got an SKS with rounds I need to burn through.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, it's been raining, so I don't have to worry about the black powder causing a fire now. So
that is good. That is really good. You've got a couple muzzle loaders, don't you, Sheldon?
yeah, got that Lehman. Got a CVA mountain rifle and a Pedersoli Pennsylvania rifle. That one I cracked the stock on, but a little Gorilla Glue fixed it.
And 2 Winchester 1866s.
Yes.
How about you, AR? What are you going to be shooting tomorrow? You going to burn any black powder?
Nah, I think I'm going to be spending some time with the wife, something I ain't done much of lately.
Oh, that sounds exciting. That sounds like a lot of fun. No smooth bores, no elephant guns, no nothing, huh?
I don't see her. Yeah, it'll be tons of fun.
Well, and Duke's just going to work.
Yeah. Bad thing about working night shift is I got to work when everybody else is having fun.
I got asked if I could work tomorrow, and they showed me the pay rate for working tomorrow. I'm like, man, maybe I should, but don't want to.
You get double time?
Yeah.
That'd be all right.
Lucky. I only get time and a half.
That not for an American holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I get off here tonight, I got to keep up my tradition of watching the John Wayne Salute to America. I don't think I've missed that in like 15 years the night before 4th of July. You ever watch that?
I
Nah.
don't think I have, no.
I think it's free on YouTube still. You'd enjoy it. It's just John Wayne do it. It's about an hour and a half of a stage program of him talking about American history. It's pretty good stuff. Let's see. Let's go over here to our comment section. We got Revere 0311 is in here tonight. Eric Pennington is in. Louisiana Gray. Let's see. Oregon Outback said this is the little 3rd of July show leading up to the big show tomorrow. Yeah, no show tomorrow that I'm aware of. Oh, that was my fault. A lot of the people I asked was short notice. Diane Houston said, good evening, all. 11 bang, bang. Oh, that's us, I guess. Oregon Outback said, should we refer to you as 11 boom, boom tonight? I guess if you want to. Carrie Stottlemyre, San Diego, standing by. Hello. Hope everyone is having a great evening. James Cox said, just lit a good cigar, have a ice cold Diet Mountain Dew ready for the show. Well, good for you.
That's a thought.
Gunsmith 4570 said, good evening, everyone. Doug Duke said, evening all. BR5-4-9 number 2 said, hello from Michigan. Just in time for once. Jared Abraham said, hello from Fort Laramie, Wyoming. Turkey Creek said, Morton Tyrannus. Is Jared one of your crowd, Duke?
No, I don't remember the name, and if I've met you, apologize for not remembering the name, but yeah, I know where Fort Laramie's at. So, are you one of the seasonals up there? Or?
Let's see. Wait, can't say that on YouTube. You can say whatever you want on YouTube, Turkey Creek. We're always a hair's breadth from being thrown off here anyway. And like I said before, you're gonna get thrown off. It might as well be for doing something worth it. Kodak Tackman said, rather warm evening. Antique Gunslinger said, I'm in. Louisiana Gray said, sorry, fellows. Benjamin NG said, good day for all of you. Turkey Creek said, only if YouTube can read in Latin. Shot Shules in. He said, good evening, all. By Land and Seas in. He said, howdy, everyone. We'll be looking at the end of July, guys. There's going to be a little collaboration between By Land and Sea and myself, hopefully. Carrie Stottlemyre said, here we go. Hardy said, hello, you silly rebels. Joshua Harris, hello. Brandon Birch, hello. David W., good evening, everyone. Soylent Green says, hi. Desert Rat, 45, let her rip. Kent said, good evening, Patriot. Shoshua said, Smith Carbine and Remington New Model Army. I've seen a lot of Smith Carbines here lately. That's a subject for later, though. I was talking to Salvador. We were questioning the validity of Smith carbines being in Arizona in 1863, and that was when he said we're getting a little. I agreed with him. We're getting a little nitpicky when the gun exists, but we're just worried about what state it's in.
That means you're getting on my level of stitch counteriness.
So this is a quick tidbit, just real fast. I actually found out one of the guys I'm friends with. He was in that one, the Apaches in that movie. So that's cool.
Cool. I thought they looked pretty good. Hardy said, if I can find a range that's open, I might try to get some full stock Hawken running. That'd be interesting. I hope to be building one of those this winter. Louisiana Gray said, here you go, AR. A happy wife is a happy. There you go, AR. Happy wife is a happy life.
Absolutely.
Soylent Green said, I'll be at Independence Hall tomorrow. Cool. As a reenactor. Will be my first time there. Gonna be where it was signed on that day and see the Liberty Bell. Sick as a dog, but still excited. Yeah, I wouldn't miss it. Let's see. Jace Epic Hunter. I always have to look at that name 3 times to read it. Said, visited Logwood today. They have a common rifle. I think he meant Lodgewood, maybe. They have a U.S. common rifle, a 17th century matchlock wall gun from India, and a British P42 with a bayonet fighting hole cut in the stock. Octagon Garage is in. Hey, Robert. He's the guy who sent me. He sent me a full-length stock for a Hawken.
Nice.
And so it's left-handed. I'm going to work on it. I haven't made up my mind yet, though. Do I want to go percussion and be nug, or do I want to go flintlock just for the fun of it?
What
Flintlock.
The original flintlock Hawkins exist?
Yeah.
Oh, full stock.
Yeah, this is
not
a full stock.
percussion, full stock.
Yeah, I didn't know. There seems to be some. You don't think there's a single percussion full stock?
I've not seen it.
Oh yeah, I have to get the big book about it.
Which is an interesting side note. When I was up at Museum of the Fur Trade a few years ago, they had a Hawken double barrel shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a few. I'd have to look through my pictures again, but I'm pretty sure that they didn't have any. Not that they've got all the Hawkins, but they didn't have any full stock Hawkins. They had a couple of full stock flintlock Hawkins.
I think I'm going to go flintlock. I've kind of made my mind up that way. Gray Wolf said, I'm in Alaska and have black powder rolling block and need to barrel it as a black powder cartridge, but I need fun, easy to find brass and primers, small if possible. That is small game trapper. You're going to rebarrel it. Oh, you're going to rebarrel it. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. 43 Spanish is not easy to find. If you want to talk about rebarreling, I think the guy down here in the corners has done some rebarreling a time or two.
I've rebarreled a few guns.
When I get done reading these, I want to ask you some stuff about that. Don't let me forget. I'll probably forget. Soylent Green said, AR American, that was a weird-looking deer on your wall. What's the story on that?
Well, that's a sheep. 4-horn Jacob's ram, but that one's only got 3 horns on it. And then there's 13-point buck over there, little 6-pointer there, and then a hog that I shot. That hog I shot with that 44 special that I open top that I shot too many buffalo boar in and
loosened her up a little bit. What'd you shoot that ram with?
That 44 special. That was my hunt pistol for a while. I'm trying to think. I think that 6-pointer was shot with that 44 special too.
Was that with buffalo boar loads?
Oh yeah, that's all I used in that thing. That's why I broke it at about 500 rounds.
So I got a quick question for you. Where you're at, when you size a deer by points, do you count all the points or one side?
Here in Michigan, we count them all, or at least that's the way I was taught.
Yeah, because here in Colorado, it's always 4x4, 4x3. We never count the whole because a lot of places where you got to hunt at to be legal, you got to have so many points on one side at least. Usually it's 4.
Yeah, I haven't hunted in probably about 8-9 years. After my dad and my brothers and everybody I hunted with died, I just kind of lost interest in it.
Was yours a Cimarron import or a Stoger import? 72 open top, that one you shot those in with?
Cimarron.
Okay. Wondering.
I haven't had any problems since I moved over to black powder loads and made it 45 Colt.
Oh, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I call it a plowboy special. He had that one with the Magnetus grips, 5.5-inch barrels. When I rebarreled it, I put a 5.5-inch barrel, reamed the 44 cylinder out to 45, and then put some Magnetus grips on it. I made an exact copy of the one plowboy had.
So what was the what were you shooting bullet weight and speed out of that buffalo boar?
I'd have to grab the box and look. I don't remember now, but obviously it was too heavy.
Well, I was just wondering how close you're getting with using that 777 and the plowboy load in a 45 Colt. Probably not far off.
Yeah, I think the pressure's probably lower though.
It is a lot lower, but I think for what it's doing, you may be getting the same ballistics because you're shooting a heavier bullet and not the same ballistics, but.
Yeah.
You think you were what was you shooting, about a 220 grain bullet or so on 44 special?
I would guess so. They were the hard cast, buffalo boar. everything I shot was a one-shot drop. You know, that buffalo bore's good ammo, expensive but really good ammo.
Yeah, just too hot for an open top.
It's probably too hot for a lot of the guns that are, you know, like now that I blew that open top up, I wouldn't shoot it in like any of the Pietta single action army clones.
Well, we have to have people like you, or we'd never know.
Mhm.
That's like I tell everybody, blow it up as long as you don't get hurt. It's just money, fix it, you know.
Yeah. Let's see. Grey Wolf said, up to Caribou. Any suggestions? Grey Wolf said, I'm in Alaska, have a black powder rolling block. Okay, I see what he's saying now. It was in two different comments. I'm in Alaska, have black powder rolling block, and I need to barrel it as a black powder cartridge rifle, but I need fun, easy to find brass and primers, small if possible. That is small game, trapper, up to Caribou. Any suggestions? If you want to go with a historical cartridge and you want it in a rolling block and you want it easy to find brass, put it in 4570 and that'll take care of everything you need.
That's what I was just going to say. 4570 is probably about the best rounds you could find for that, as far as finding components, ammo, stuff like that.
100 pieces of brass for like $35. That's not bad at all compared to the other big rifle brass.
And the nice thing about 4570 is if you go to load smokeless, you can load that pretty hot. But 4590 and up, you can't safely load with smokeless. You only have black powder.
Mm-hmm. Unless you have lots of fillers.
Don't do a 450 black powder express, because that brass is about $1 a brass right now.
Well, don't do 5070. That's $9 a brass right now. I seriously, since I have the brass, and I was going to talk to you about this. So I have a shotgun, one of those Belgians, the ones I showed you. I was wondering how hard it would be to turn that into a double 5070 rifle. You remember I showed you 6 months ago that 1870s 12 gauge Belgian one that's not worth anything, hardly has a broken interior.
I mean, it's not that hard to do. I got that book. I'll loan you. And, you know, I mean, obviously you can call me and I can try. The main thing is either you're going to have a lathe to thread the barrels, or you're going to have to take it to a machine shop and have them thread it. If you're going to build it like a true double barrel rifle, like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the hardest part is, you know, machining stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got to have to probably, if them ribs are brazed on that, then you're going to have to either make ribs or buy ribs. You're going to have to make a front and rear sight or buy a front and rear sight. And if you buy all that stuff, it gets real expensive.
Yeah.
So I try and make all that stuff. That's why it's so time consuming. I've been working on that 4570 double rifle as I get time. And man, that's been a 2-year project, and I'm still not done with it.
Let's see. I have a few more questions here. Howdy, boys. Garrett, thanks for the info. I believe I shall investigate John Wayne as well after the live. Yeah, John Wayne Salute to America. It's about an hour and a half long, and it's pretty high quality. Or it's a fairly high quality TV show done in the 70s. Grey Wolf. Hey guys, are you going to throw in with the Pepperbox streaming service? That rings a bell. What is it? Do you know? Somebody said something. It's like a gun tuber streaming deal. I don't remember.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
There's a couple of those out there. Ian McCollum's got one out there, and
His is like Weapons of War.
yeah.
So I was over at the other week. I went to Museum of the Fur Trade, and I forgot to take a picture. But they have a whaling gun or a seal gun. It's a seal gun. It was like 86 caliber.
A seal gun.
Seal gun. It was like 80 something caliber.
That's the one that shoots the dart, right?
I mean, it probably could if you needed it to.
Shoot anything
I
you
know which
wanted
one
to.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought that was like for shooting a dart.
Well, not a harpoon gun. It was a.
Well, that's what I meant, like a harpoon. It's like shooting for a harpoon for the seals out at sea.
Probably that would be a lot easier than hoping that that ball hit.
Actually, I might have it right here. I was just looking at the Hawkins at the Fur Trade Museum.
Okay, I forgot to take a picture. I know they moved their little center display with something else now, but they had. I was looking at a lot of their trade muskets, a lot of those have swamp barrels, and a lot of them had rear sights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, smooth bores with a trade musket with a swamp barrel and a smooth sight. That's interesting. Or is it a trade rifle that had a swamp barrel?
I think it's a musket.
Oh, interesting.
I was thinking about going back that way again, but I got other things I want to do too.
Jerry Stottlemyre said, I'm going to make everyone jealous. I'm working the 4th and the 5th, getting holiday and double time. So 6 days pay for 2 days work.
Dang.
Yeah, I've been working enough years that I try not to work any more than I have to.
They caught me in that trap back in the oil field days. Work doubles, work a triple. You make all kinds of money, and then the taxes come in on your check, and you're like, I didn't make any more money than if I'd have just not worked all those hours.
I don't
tax bracket.
I don't do the on-call anymore. I don't do holidays anymore. Everybody's like, man, you're giving up that money. I'm like, my time's worth more than that money.
No, that's one way to look at it. Soylent Green said, nice carry. Jeremy Gunslinger said, hey guys, how y'all been? Kerry Stottlemyre said, Soylent Green, thanks. I've been on the bay here, so I had the best view of the fireworks in town. Rivero 311, Flintlock Supremacy. Is there a recommended video about Hawken rifles? Yeah. I'll let you know. I have to go back and find it. There's one been done recently that is not like it's not like a video. It's and Turkey Creek sent it to me. Let me see if I can find it. Turkey Creek sent it to me. Let's see. I gotta see which one it is. It wasn't it. Let me look here. Well, I can find it later, Revere, and I'll send it to you. But there's a good lecture on the Hawken. And basically, what we all know is that it's not as prestigious nor as represented as a lot of people think. But it's still there. And it's still very, very interesting firearm, just so long as you put it in its place. And really don't. What people do is they replace the Lehman with the Hawken, and they're like, and you got to have an understanding of both of those. It has its place; it's definitely there, but it's not as prominent as a lot of people give it credit for being. And there's no real good video out yet. I've had requests that once I get this rifle together to make a video, maybe I will. I'm planning on it eventually. The only trouble is
the whole thing with Hawkins is, is all the 70s mountain man movies. They just kept saying Hawkins. And that's all people want to hear now. Hawkins.
Can't remember who it was, but back in the 1840s or 50s, one of the authors wrote that he was at the mountain man's, he was at the fur trapper's cabin, and on the table was a Green River knife, and above the hearth was a Hawken rifle, the finest you could purchase. And when people read that, they assumed like everybody had Hawkins, but the reality was that was such a strange thing to see. I think that's why he wrote that it was there. It'd be like one day, you pull up and there's a Corvette at your local 7-Eleven, and you write to somebody, I saw a Corvette today, and then 150 years from now, everybody's like, well, the 7-Elevens were full of Corvettes.
My knowledge of muzzle-loading rifles from that time is Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah, that's.
I think
And
I
it's
think
not.
the only time people said Hawken is when they were hawking a loogie. So.
Jesus.
Maybe. That being said, in the 1850s, it gets pretty predominant. A few years later, pre-Civil War. But those are short stock cap locks. Let's see. Let me get through a few more of these comments. I need a small caliber flintlock to get my flinches out. Still can't shoot a flintlock well. Yeah, Southern Mountain Rifle in 36, pretty hard to beat. Let's see. Silent Green said that sheep is crazy looking. Gray Wolf said remarrying is not the issue. Choosing a fun caliber that I can feed and use is the issue.
You want to get rid of a flinch, get you a 450 Nitro Express. After you shoot that a few times, you won't flinch on anything smaller, I promise.
I'm the opposite. I shoot those big caliber guns, and well, not 50-70, but bigger than that, because 50-70, 45-70, those don't have recoil like people think. I mean, they kick a little bit, but they're not like what you're talking about. Now, you get up there to those big ones or a brown best with a 200 grain charge, I'll flinch for 2 months, and I'll have to start at the bottom and work my way back up again.
I was just being a smart.
A smart Alec Baldwin?
Yeah, that 450 Nitro Express really isn't that bad if you know how to shoot it. Lean into it, put it tight in your shoulder. It'll push you more than it kicks,
Yeah. Okay. We are the anti-freedom bookends carry. Josh Harris said it's all the points in Ohio and counting points on bucks. Kerry Stottlemyre said I'll be working on my flinch tomorrow morning before work with 50 caliber Woods Runner. Oh yeah, I saw you built that. That looked really nice. You got the same one Ethan had. It was right here. He took it. He has to get a part replaced in it. Garrett, since you asked, do you prefer one over the other, be it Cimarron or Stoker Import? I like Cimarrons, but you can get lemons from either of them. I do like Cimarrons just because you have people easier to deal with, people that are Mike Harvey's kind of in touch with the YouTube black powder community, and so you can deal with them. But it's not like it's impossible to get a lemon from Cimarron either. So Jeremy Gunslinger said I had my 2 split cases in 45 Colt. Sounds like you have a chamber issue. Let's see. Todd B said the fourth show on the 3rd. Yes. What were you saying, Duke? Sorry.
Either that or pressure issue.
Could be.
On the 2 split cases, yeah.
Brandon Birch said recently acquired a butchered 1884 Trapdoor for a good deal. Now the question is, do I put it back to military or make her a period correct Gimmer rifle? What do y'all think? Well,
Gimmer.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a gazillion 1884 Trapdoors out there. Putting it back to military condition probably cost you more than just buying one in decent military conditions. So I think
make you a brass flintlock and bolt it to the side of that lock, and just make yourself a 18 or a 1950s Hollywood flintlock.
You'd be funny. You think that's funny, but that would bring the value up significantly.
Yeah.
Don't do it and don't claim it, but if it was, that would bring the value up significantly.
I saw what was a trapdoor that was cut down into a blanket gun, and the grip was just like a barrel band or like a barrel hoop. They turn into like a little pistol grip. I've been wanting to make one, but then I told Duke it like a while ago, maybe a year ago. Then he brought up the ATF may not like that. I was like, oh yeah, those guys are an issue.
No, yes and no. You will come across them on Gunbroker as historic pieces every now and then.
Well, if you find one that was done back then, that's cool. If you make a antique into one of those, it is creating a new firearm.
I passed up at one point an actual 73 high arch, one of the rare ones. And it looked to me like it actually been cut out of a carbine. But remember I showed you that one? It went for like $110 or something, dude. It was marked under blanket gun.
We got to live underneath this tyranny, or we just can't have the nice gun you want.
You can't have the nice gun with the barrel. Chopped off front barrel before the front sight. The end of the lead of the 45-70 sticking out the end of the barrel.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Okay. Grey Wolf said also, who is the contemporary Colt collector? Came across a stainless Anaconda labeled as an Alaska gun, commemorative special edition. I wonder what that might be. Value might be. I don't know. The only guy I know who's collected those is Plowboy, and he didn't really collect them. He just had a few. You know any Colt collectors? They are modern Colts.
No, I don't. It seems like all my buddies are into Glocks and that. I'm the odd man out. They always make fun of me because I like the cowboy guns.
Same.
Let's see. Grey Wolf said large rifle primers have been non-existent up here for 3 years. You can still get them online. You have to pay a hazmat fee, but I think there are some 45-70 brass. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they do make small rifle primer 45-70 brass.
I've seen 45 Colt.
Yeah, for sure. They make it in small brass or small primer brass. And 45 ACP too. Let's see. Doug Dukes is in. Hi, Doug. He said Brandon Burt's prettiest rifle I ever saw was a Trapdoor Gimmer. Yeah, they're something else. Especially like a 66 and 50-70.
Mm-hmm.
Those look good. Jeremy Gunslinger said, I've heard the smokeless 45-70 load is based off of black powder carbine loads. Could be. Depends on which smokeless 45-70 load you're talking about. The cowboy ammo? Possibly. Buffalo bore? Probably not. Have you shot any buffalo bore 45-70 AR?
No, I only had one 45-70. It was a Trapdoor. I don't know which model. I got it from a buddy of mine real cheap, and somebody had cut the stock and sporterized it. If I remember right, it only had 2 groove rifling in it, though. It only had, 2 lands in it. It was a pretty cool gun, but back then, just, I don't know, it wasn't, I think I've maybe fired one box of just whatever the cheapest 45-70 I could find through it was, and probably traded it or sold it. I don't even remember now what happened to it exactly.
Yeah, that's what happened with a lot of those later military 45-70s. They were so prolific, and they hit a lot of them hit the surplus market in about 1920, and that's why the movie companies cut them up. The people that were, a lot of people cut them up after that. They're not even like Bannerman's. There's a lot of Bubba later guns. Oh, let's see. Because everybody had a Trapdoor carbine from the greasy grass, in about 1930.
I wish I had that gun back now. I mean, I just, like you said, I picked it up because I got a good deal on it. I wasn't really into that stuff. I was into the single actions and, of course, ARs, AKs, and stuff like that. Now I kind of appreciate everything. I don't think there's any guns I don't like,
Yeah. I had a guy send me an email the other day saying that he found a guy who was advertising that he had $20,000. He wanted $20,000 for a Custer era carbine, a Custer number range carbine. He sent me pictures of it, and I'm like, well, it doesn't have a front barrel band spring because that's a rifle somebody's kept the stock off on, and it's got a Buffington rear sight. So I definitely wouldn't put $20,000 that direction. Let's see. Grey Wolf said, Pepper boxes with Nick, the fat electrician, Brandon Herrera, Angry Cop, etc. They set it up like Netflix, but yeah, gun tubers. Yeah, those guys are too big for my circles. Shot Shield said, Garrett, I have the round nose Lyman 45-70 mold, but it's throwing 514 grain bullets at 120 lead. Can I get the weight down with a little more tin? How much can I use? Yes, you can. I had this discussion with Jake from Everything Black Powder the other day because he was using wheel weights and he was getting way light. He was getting like 40 grains light. And I have the book right here on that, but I would just start adding a little tin to it as you go. You don't want to get too much though, because if you get into wheel weight era with the way that rifling works on those, I don't know why, but they lead because they don't expand and kick up and get in the rifling grooves. Have you guys ever noticed that on original guns? Too hard of a bullet leads?
No, don't have any original
Noticed
guns.
that with my Colt single action army.
Yeah, it definitely happens with trapdoors, especially in 50-70. You've got to be able to bump it to get it up into the rifling grooves or it starts leading. But yeah, I would try, a little more tin. I can't tell you exactly what to use. But yeah, a little more tin will bring that weight down just a little bit. If you're really, I know what you're trying to do with it. You're pretty worried about being accurate. So, and who's to say that every bullet that came out of Frankfurt Arsenal weighed exactly 500 grains either?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen any studies on that, Duke? What was the accuracy of the ammunition like?
No.
Bullet weight?
Not.
Okay. Okay, Grey Wolf said, was the Hawken double, I think to you, Duke, was the Hawken double a typical back action lock or was it side locks?
Let me look again because I just looked at it. It was a 10 gauge.
10 gauge seems to be a pretty common gauge for those.
It is a back action lock.
That makes the wrist a lot thinner, makes everything a lot easier,
Mm-hmm.
but it also tends to lead to
What's
cracking.
funny is that the Jim Bridger Hawken, not one that he owned, but one that he sold through his business. That rifle's a 60 caliber rifle. It weighs 16 pounds, and the stock is about twice as big around as the shotgun. At the wrist there, that stock is like that on the rifle, and then the shotgun's like that.
Yeah, Soylent Green wanted to know if we have to like Black Rifle Coffee and Demo Ranch to join the Pepper Box. Well, if that's the case, I'm kind of out. Okay, Grey Wolf said Dimmick and Derringer also had very nice half-stock plains rifles. They had a lot of full-stock ones, too. At least Derringer did. Derringer came earlier, if my memory serves me right, than Lehman. Diane Houston said, how did the Mountain Men get percussion caps? Dude.
Trading.
Rendezvous. It's in the ledger for coming to
Rendezvous or a fur trading post.
They didn't necessarily. It wasn't necessarily that big of a thing until later in the fur trading period, because they.
Yeah, there were caps traded in 1830 something, but you see a lot more gun flints.
Yeah.
So there were percussion caps out there. They just weren't as common.
I'm trying to remember who that was. I would say Manuel Lisa, but don't quote me on that in the name. But they were in like Fort Hall or somewhere in Idaho, and they converted their flintlocks to percussion caps just because they couldn't get their flints to ignite in like the wet weather whenever I was in Idaho.
Well, wasn't Manuel Lisa like 1804?
Yeah, as I said, don't quote me.
Well, no, I'm trying to think because he would have been because John Coulter ran into him on the way back from. I might be all wrong on that.
I just remember it was a little excerpt that they brought all the tools and everything that they needed to do it while they're out here like Idaho.
I know.
Yeah, he might have been out there because he died in 1820. Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah,
okay. Joshua Hare Hawken also didn't settle on the heavy half stocks until almost the very end of the Mountain Man era. Manuel Lisa carried a brown Bess. Yeah, that makes sense. Joshua Harris said, what do you guys think of the Guns and Horizon? I'll understand if you don't want to give spoilers. I think I'm probably the only one here that's seen it.
Yeah, I just can't sit down and watch a 3-hour movie.
I'm not going to spoil it. Lot of cartridge conversions in 1863, which I don't like. but at least it's not 73 single actions.
What Kevin Costner should have done was what he was at an intermission like halfway through, so he can get up and go use the restroom.
Yeah, that probably would have been a good idea. But it's one of those deals where it's supposed to carry out over the course of like 20 years. And he did it all with his own money. So if the majority of the series is going to take place in 1870s, then all those cartridge conversions are perfect. And if he only had enough money to get one set of guns in there, maybe that's what he did. The other thing is Smith carbines. Everybody and their dog in that thing has a Smith carbine in 1863 in Arizona. And Sheldon and I were discussing that would not be a common gun to be out there, but it did exist. So we're getting nitpicky at this point. If, they even show the cavalry being armed with them. Brand new crates of Smith. What they are is those Pietta Smith carbines. You can tell by looking at them. And that's fine. At one point, they eject a brass casing out of a Smith carbine. And I was like, that's not right. But then I went and looked it up, and there was brass casings. I always thought they were all rubber, but they did have brass casings.
No, they had some brass ones, yeah.
They had early on a double-barrel breech-loading shotgun that took me right out of it because this is supposed to be 1863, and I'm like, that doesn't jive. And then I got to looking really close, and the hammers came down on top of the barrels in a funny way. And so I looked really, really, really close at that, and it was a pinfire double-barrel shotgun, which existed in 1863. And so that was just that for a gun guy, that was something I immediately enjoyed. 1863 in Arizona, about 1 out of every 5 people has a Henry. I don't think that's quite correct, but like I said, once again, nitpicking. But other than that, for what they could do, they did a good job. I thought the weaponry was fantastic for what they could do. They brought out a Danson Brothers and converted it to cartridge, which was a thing in the show. But I was like, I don't know if that definitely not in 63. But they made a big deal about having a brace of Danson Brother Confederate revolvers. And so, yeah, if you want to get, like Duke says, stitch countery as you want, yeah, there's some cartridges that shouldn't be there. But cartridges were there, for the Henrys and whatnot. So it could have existed, and they could have done a lot worse. I give them an 8, maybe a 7 out of 10 for firearm historical accuracy, just because too many Smith carbines and too many Henrys for the time period. But at least they didn't have 73 single actions and 94 Winchesters. So a lot of Spencer carbines too. So, and most of those have been in the hands of the Union Army, but it is possible. A few paper cutter sharps. I wish they would have used paper cutter sharps for everybody, because those things had already been out there a long time. That would have been awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Turkey Creek retexted me the video from the Hawken Classic. Let's see here. Yeah, if you're still out there, if you guys want to see a video, there's a really good lecture on the Hawkens that came out 1 month ago. It is by Doyle Reed, the role of the Hawken rifle in the Rocky Mountain fur trade. It's a really good video. It's a 50 minutes long lecture, and it's really well done.
Doyle Reed, I know that guy.
Well, yeah, he looks like somebody you'd know.
I do know that guy.
Is he running around Ben's Fort would be my guess.
Yeah, and seen him up at Fort Laramie once.
Let's see. Andrew Ryder said, going to wear some period clothing tomorrow out in public. Wonder what kind of looks I'm going to get.
Well, I did that in Kansas, and I was asked if I was part of a religious cult. By somebody that's good friends with Garrett's mother's cousin twice removed.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was something Sheldon and I were talking about. The Apaches in that movie were completely clothed, and another guy on the internet was complaining that the natives had too much clothing. And like Sheldon said, you want to go out there in just a breechcloth? I don't think any of those actors want to do that these days.
Well,
not that it was very correct anyway.
Like I said, one of the guys I went to school with, and I get along with him now. He plays one of the Apaches in that movie, and he has tattoos all over. So that sure was there for a reason.
Yeah, they were very well clothed, and like you said, they had historic saddles, but the Apaches all rode saddles. But for their culture, I think that would be fine in 1863.
So you guys know too much of that history. I don't know none of that stuff. I just know that if the movie's based in the 1860s, nobody had single action armies.
Yeah.
Well, for the Apache part, a lot of it was kind of just trying to figure it out because I don't really read into the Apaches like at all.
Yeah. I won't say it.
Say what?
You can't get your annuities because you're not Prairie Apache, Kyle.
Well,
Man.
I was there and they weren't, so they're mine now.
They didn't need them.
You should have done what and asked that guy to take his hat off.
Yeah. You come outside and take your hat off.
All right.
Take your hat off. See if your scalp's fit for a decent man's lodge pole.
He did tell him some horror story about the Indian agent in what Indian agent was that? Sheldon?
There's an Indian agent up in Minnesota at the Dakota reservation. He wasn't giving them their annuities, and they supposedly he told them to eat grass, and when the fighting started, they killed him and stuffed grass into his mouth.
There you go. It probably wasn't Prairie Apache, Kiowa, or Cheyenne that done that. So.
No, it's Dakota.
Yeah. Let's see. Grey Wolf said 45 Colt should be a gentle taper, not a straight wall. Starline has shipped me brittle brass. Full length size 45 in large chambers can lead to splits. Been there, done that. Ryan Kramer's on. Hi, Ryan. He said, happy 4th, Garrett boy. Happy 4th of July to you too, Ryan. Grey Wolf said, I shot some Paco Kelly loads in my 1886 and 4570 and came to realize that I can get through penetrative with black powder loads on moose. More power wasn't really the answer. Let's see. 30 BR5492 says 31 led to 10 usually works. Yeah, but what Shot Shula's doing is getting a historically accurate to the nth degree cartridge, and he's trying to test. I mean, a really good bore, like a brand new bore, original gun. He's doing tests on accuracy at distance, and so he's trying his best to use the 20-to-1 lead. He's using Bayberry wax and graphite lube, so he can tell you how good he's getting this. And he has actually got some really, really outstanding results with that 18. I think it says in 1884. I mean, he's just shooting lights out with it.
Oh, hey.
But if his bullets were a little more uniform, he'd probably even be better. Let's see. Chris Bird said, one of my best friends who happens to be 30 plus years my senior tell me he grew up shooting a cut down Trapdoor, shooting it as a 410 shotgun. No modification, just slip a 410 shell right in there. Is this possible? Well, it's possible. It's actually should be very possible because 410 is 457 and the originals have a 459 bore. Should be possible. Have you heard of that, Duke?
What's that?
410 shotgun shell and a trapdoor. I know 45 Colts will work. They don't always eject very good.
Yeah, I never tried it, but I mean, shoot 45 Colt through a 410. Shit, I don't know. I don't know if I would shoot a slug. I'd probably shoot a light birdshot load just to be safe.
Yeah. A Shot Shula said, according to an early Ordnance Department report, the 50-70 Trapdoor bullets were 1 to 12. Yes, they were early on, but they went to 1 to 20 during the 68 conversions time period. I know it. I know that's what it was. So, yeah, but I have read that they were anywhere from 100% to 1 to 12. So that could lead to a lot of different variations in weight. Soylent Green said, I'm having a leading issue with my new Cimarron Model 3 American 44 Special. I think the bullets are too hard. Leads up with my black powder 44 Russian loads. My 45 Schofield hand loads are fine. Any thoughts, AR? Leading out a 44
I just started shooting cast bullets back during COVID because couldn't find nothing else, and so I'm still pretty new to that. I haven't had any problems with the hard cast bullets leading up in any of my 45 Colt pistols, but I don't load them up super hot either. So
yeah. Let's see. Turkey Creek said that Hawken double barrel may be in my video, the Fur Trade Museum. I think it is. Plowboy said heavy smokeless plus B 4570 is a lot meaner than the Trapdoor level loads. I have ran some of that hot Buffalo Bore stuff through a Marlin. It's stout. Yeah, Trapdoor loads, you should cut it off at 18,000 PSI. And so, yeah, they go way up from there for 4570 nowadays. Let's see. Get down here, man. We have a lot of people in here tonight. A lot of comments. Mill Creek Range said, I saw a 66 in 63. Just seen the movie this evening. I have mixed feelings. I didn't notice the 66 rifle in there. I saw a lot of Henrys. Happy Independence Day, old one guy. Jersey Red said, Happy Independence Day, y'all. Shashil said, I've actually been making roll foil cartridges for the Smith, copying the Trimble design when they ran out of rubber. Let's see. The rolled foil were actually more common than the rubber. Let's see. BR5 is talking about using 30-1. Doug Duke said, ask Gary Wiggins on the Dance Brothers. He is on Facebook. He wrote a book on the Dance Brothers guns. Let's see. What's going on, y'all? Jay Wheeler said, hope everyone's having a great 4th. Soylent Green said, look at the prices on that book. Greg Pilgrim's in. Hi, Pilgrim. He says, hey. Kerry Stottlemyre said, Gary, any recommendations for the Woods Runner patch and ball combo? I have a 490 ball and an 015, 018, and 020 patches. I have the best accuracy we shot. I have to go back and watch the video. Ethan has a video on sighting in and getting them to stack with that Woods Runner at 50 caliber at 100 yards. I know what he was using when he stopped was a 490 ball and 020 patches with Blackie Thomas's gun butter. So it was working pretty good.
all my experience with black powder cartridges was, like I was saying, during COVID. I actually, watching Plowboy's videos, I started loading up 45 Colt black powder just so I could shoot, because I wanted to shoot. You couldn't find smokeless powder anywhere around me. So I went to 777 just because it was a little bit hotter than the regular black powder. And so I'm fairly new to all the black powder cartridge stuff.
Yeah. Oregon Outback said, watched your 72 open top video today. Enjoyed it a bunch. Good job. Love those open tops. Thank you. Gray Wolf said, I don't know how accurately the early weights were reported. And like I said, they could be off by a few grains per bullet. I know that some bullets having cavities was an issue later on into the 1880s. Let's see. Late 1870s, before they got real crazy about accuracy. Let's see. I'm late but covered in Fusel de Chasse smoke and full of burgers. Happy Independence Day. That sounds like a great time. Let's see. Sidetrack answer if you want. What's the takeaway from the 1873s at Little Bighorn? Were they that bad, or did Colonel Custer Gamble just fail? What weapons did the natives have? We have a whole 3-hour live stream, if you go back not too long ago, on Tales of the Trails live show. Oops, we lost Sheldon. And in that video, we discussed I'll let Duke give you some input too onto the cartridges. But yeah, it turns out that there was probably around 200 Winchester style repeating lever actions there, and 8 or 9 of those were in the hands of the Americans. A lot of muzzleloaders, a lot of bows. I wish Sheldon would step back in here because he has more info, and he wasn't on. I don't think he was on that chat. Go ahead, Duke. Take on weapons types.
So yeah, it was like I said, a lot of muzzleloaders because Northwest trade guns were being traded right up until flintlocks were being traded right up until 1874. There were percussion versions of the Northwest trade gun available at that time too, and there were quite a few lever actions. There's a handful of quite a few Spencers, but
Yeah.
there were guys that were trading lever action rifles either at the agencies or illegally trading them. Henry's, Winchester 66s to the natives. Because at that time, the government didn't want to interrupt any trade discourse. Well, when they found out that, hey, these guys are shipping them out here to the combat zone, essentially, then it was, oh, we have to stop them like right now. So there was quite a few that didn't make it out there, and I don't remember what the count is, but there were 8 1873 4440s at Little Bighorn. Just 8. And that was from the forensic evidence because years ago they did forensic study where they collected all the bullet casings and then they compared them to each other. And they were able to find out where just about every gun that was fired at on that battlefield, where it moved on that battlefield, almost down to pretty much who fired it, at least on the cavalry side. But they were able to determine that there were 8 1873 Winchesters. One of those was Tom Custer.
Yeah. You got any thoughts on that, Salvador? Native Arms at Little Bighorn?
I think besides the ones that they verified were there, and whatever ones like some of the warriors talk about, I think majority of it was bows and arrows, but until they started getting them off the dead soldiers.
Yeah.
Because there was about quarter, and a quarter is probably the rough estimate, but it's probably the more estimate that everyone will go for is that that quarter had the repeaters, and then the other quarter I had the miscellaneous.
And you have to remember that quarter with the repeaters is heavy on Spencers, like Duke was just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Spencers were way more available. But I was just going by a Wooden Leg, and he had a picture of his here. He's still holding his 73 in the 1920s that he picked up there. But just so that, and I've showed this before, I'll show this book. These are the captured arms, and it's not necessarily one-to-one, Revere, because we don't know if the natives turned in the weapons they had or the ones they wanted to turn in. So we don't know.
If you read Black Elk Speaks, he says that him and his uncle, they buried theirs before they went to the agency. They dug them up when they took off to Canada, and then like a lot of them were probably doing that and then turning in the ratty ones.
Yeah. So, but here's what we have. This is the list of Winchesters, and it's not very big that were captured, like maybe 16 or 17. This is the list of Spencers, and it's actually quite a few more. This is the list of Sharps, and this is a list of miscellaneous stuff. You're talking Joslins, Warners, Frank Wessons, Gallaghers, Smiths, Ballards. This is Lehman's. This is Lehman's. This is Lehman's, and this is Lehman's. So according to what the United States government understood in 79, there was basically 6 Lehman's there for one of everything else. And I actually kind of believe that. What's your take on that, Sheldon?
Yeah, I mean, they're cheaper to procure, so.
Yeah. And Go
Gun's
ahead.
a gun in the eye. A gun is a gun in the eyes of them. They would still want it nonetheless. I mean, yeah, sure, a repeater would be the ideal one to have.
But it cost the average person 2 months' wages, or close to that.
Yeah,
At least a month and a half.
like he's Crow, but that two leggings. He says that a Spencer in those days, which would have been like early 1870s, was 50 buffalo robes. And buffalo robes about what? We're gonna go with the rough estimate of $3 a robe. So
Whoa, 50 times $150. Wow, I believe it.
mhm.
I believe it.
Because
But
you have to look at like the buffalo robes and all the fine like native stuff that's being made back then by the natives.
mhm.
That was just everyday objects, and that's like grabbing just like a regular item in your house, like a cup or something.
Mhm.
So they didn't think anything of it, and they could get to them. They could get more real easy.
Yeah. But still, 50 buffalo robes, that's for 3 or 4 people, that's still a couple days' work.
And
You
if you
would
didn't
think.
have multiple wives, one little Indian woman was doing all that work.
Yeah. How many do you think
I
they
mean,
could do a day?
not a lot. I mean, if back then the women probably had better muscles than the men because they did all the labor. So don't
Yeah.
piss her off.
You won't be getting if she don't scrape them buffalo hides, you don't get your repeater.
Yeah.
But to go back to the question on the Twister trapdoors, no, they weren't that bad. The ammunition was that bad, and it wasn't even necessarily that it was made out of copper because, as we've discussed before, the same copper alloy used at the Hayfield and Wagon Box fight without a single issue. But it was older by then and had been carried in leather and had got, what do they call it, green verdigris? What do they call that, Duke?
Burgess.
Oh, I just call it corrosion.
Yeah, they had corroded, and so it was the ammo that corroded. And the funny thing is, everybody talks about them sticking in all these broken knives. I think they've proved maybe there's 2 or 3
Not very many.
cartridges in that whole fight that, I mean, there was a few that had heads blown off, yeah, but not that many with pocket knives. If you listen to people talk about it, you would think there's 500 cartridges that were dug out of guns with pocket knives. There's maybe 2 or 3.
So I found a quote for the number of Henrys.
Okay.
And it's quoted from the Archaeology, History, and Custer's Last Battle by Fox. And it says that the 44 rim fire round fired from the Henry rifle is the most numerous Indian gun fired, with almost as many individual guns identified as the Cavalry Springfield Model 1873.
So you're looking at about 200, as we said.
200 Henrys.
That's kind of what was always.
And, well, that's Henry guns that fired Henry rounds. So whether it's Henrys or 66s, because they're both going to fire the same round.
So you're looking at less than 1 out of every 10 natives would have had a Henry or Henry style gun or 66 or a.
And then the 50 caliber Sharps was the third most common, which were cartridge conversions. And that there was evidence that 45 caliber cavalry loads, so 45, 55, were being fired through 50 caliber rifles because the cases were split.
Yeah.
See on 73s. Does not say how many they found up there. And it doesn't say how many Spencer rounds they found, but it does say that there was quite a few of the Henrys.
Yeah, I can't remember in that live stream I did an actual quote, or I took the quote because the story that everybody had a repeater comes from Reno,
right?
But that could have been what do they call it today? Cope, just a little bit. When in reality, over 2,000 warriors there and around 200 Henrys. And that's what people don't give the Spencer enough credit there, in my opinion. So was the Spencer the second most common?
I
You
can't
said-
find it on here where it says it, but I'll have to get that book, The Archaeology of Custer's Last Stand. Archaeology and History at Custer's Last Battlefield.
Yeah. So no, the guns were fine, and they still would be, and they changed a lot of things. Revere, they put that trapdoor in the back and put a cleaning rod in it so you could knock a stuck cartridge out if you had to. But yeah, a lot of the blame that went on those trapdoor carbines was Libby Custer trying to make George Armstrong look better, because there had to have been something that wasn't him that caused this to go down. What were you going to say, Sheldon?
Oh, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. That was the whole story of every gun jammed and the military let him down and his officers let him down, and there was no way he could have ever come out of this. Well, he could have never come out of this on top, but he should have never got into it to start with.
You got enough warnings.
Yeah. Doug Duke said Garrett just picked up a Green Mountain made percussion Lehman rifle. Could be good for 50s and 60s on the Texas frontier. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Is that what yours is, Sheldon? Is it a Green Mountain barrel? Lehman?
My Lehman, the barrel might be. I know it's a Track of the Wolf, but I don't remember who the barrel maker is.
Yeah. Okay. Get through a few more of these comments. Turkey Creek said, "Adios, boys. Busy tomorrow. We'll see you later, Turkey Creek."
He had a comment.
I haven't been to the bottom if it's down there.
I was like, there we go, Octagon Garage.
Oh, yeah. Did he comment again?
Yeah.
Okay, I see it there. Let me draw
Okay.
that up. Octagon Garage said, "When did the Colt factory burn down during the Civil War? Did the Colt factory in London pick up some of the military contracts from the U.S. government?" It's been a while since I studied this, but I believe the London factory was closed down already in January of '64 when the American Colt factory burned down. And so I don't think – I want to say that
Colt
London
closed
factory,
the London factory really early.
like 55.
50s.
Yeah.
50. Well, I think 54.
Yeah, because he opened it in 51, I want to say. I can't remember off the top of my head. You've read that Pate book. Do you remember anything about that, Sheldon?
Yeah, it was only open for a little bit because he became
1856.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, there was no replacing. The contracts were helped to be filled by Metropolitan and Manhattan Arms to a small extent. But, yeah, once that's the thing. Once it burnt down, 1860 armies became prized possessions. And that's why I like to see 51 navies more in Western reenactment post-Civil War, because those 60 armies were in the Army and they weren't letting go of them, any of them that they had.
Here's a question for you guys. How many Colts were converted to cartridges, do you think, back in the day?
I just had that book. A bunch. And it depends on if you're talking about like civilians converting them or the Colt factory converting them. Because the Colt factory converted like 10,000 plus between 1873 up to 1879 of just leftover guns. And they sold them as the Mason or the Richards Mason conversions, all those others. But yeah, at least like 10,000. Like they were common. They were a lot of places.
Yeah,
They were actually a cheaper option.
Yeah.
I had read an article that it was like way cheaper to convert a cap and ball pistol to cartridge, so that they were common even when the 1873, the single action army came out. They were still converting them well into, I had read, into the 1890s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that they were I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but a single action army was running you over $17 to $20 in that time period. And Colt was actually advertising and selling from leftover parts. They built brand new conversion guns. They didn't convert them. They were parts that they'd never assembled. and they're a mismatch. When you see one, it's kind of cool because it's got like a number 251 trigger guard, and it's got the screw on the wrong side, but it's all brand new from Colt and matching serial numbers. And they made those things from 73 all the way up until close to 1880, and they sold them cheap. And like around here in my vicinity, like all the families, the ranchers that still have their guns, there's one single action Army that I can account to being here at that time with like out of like 10 families in the surrounding farm village. But there are numerous 51 Navy conversions. That's like what everybody had.
They're selling for what, $8?
Yeah, like like less than half of what a single action Army would have cost, and do the same thing.
I always wanted to find an old Colt that was, converted, whether factory or civilian converted, but a real Colt conversion.
They're not terribly pricey, actually. I mean, they are. But a conversion won't run you. It's expensive a lot of times as an original cap and ball gun. And
really?
so,
I have to look into that.
And the trouble is, they're almost all in rimfire, except for the 44s. The 38s are almost all in rimfire. 51 Navies, but it's easy to reload for them with a 22 blank rimfire cartridge reloading kit. So.
I just want one to have in the collection.
Yeah. There's something else. I like them.
I think the Colt conversions were about $5.
Yeah, it was something like that, like crazy cheap. I can't remember, but I think you're right. It's down there really cheap.
I'd probably go buy a Belgian Bulldog, but those are like $2, $3.
The funny thing is the single action Army wasn't available for a lot of years to the average. I mean, it was, quote unquote, but they sent all of them to the military till like 77, 78.
I thought it was 75.
It might be something like that. I can't remember. It was at least 4 years.
75, they were starting to put them on the civilian market. Not in great numbers, but they were. That's the one quote I seen was 75 is when they started hitting civilian markets.
I feel like
somebody just posted. Somebody just posted on one of the historic forums on Facebook. And they've got a letter and says their gun was made in 74, and it was an Army reject. It did not meet Army specifications. It was sent back to Colt and had the barrel shortened. I remember them saying that the barrel had been shortened and it was nickel plated. But it was made 74 and it was sent back because it was an Army reject because it had the inspector stamp on it, but for whatever reason it never got issued to the Army unit. Because after it had been reissued and been remade, Colt had the documentation of who they sent it to.
Did they actually nickel plate them back then, or was that a silver plating?
Nickel plating became common by the 1870s and 80s. Silver plating was more of a pre-Civil War thing. By the time you get into the 70s and 80s, it's not. I don't think it's exactly like the electric nickel plating we have today, but it was a nickel plating.
That's why I always like talking to you guys, because all you guys know all that historical stuff. I just know what I like,
Because if I think in that Pate book, he talks about. I think it was in Pate's book. He talks about how because a company had the patent on the nickel plating, Smith and Wesson and Colt both had to pay to get their stuff plated, or even run the rigs, the stuff to plate their guns.
It was the same test that they did with the trapdoors in '68, in '69. They couldn't. The same story. They couldn't actually nickel plate most of the ones they wanted to nickel plate themselves, so they had to send them off to like 3 different companies that had the patent, and then they tried to invent their own version, and it didn't work. So they only did a couple hundred nickel plated trapdoors. They sent them off to Leavenworth, and they didn't do so well.
Would Wild Bill Hickok's guns been silver plated then? Because the pictures I've seen of Wild Bill Hickok's 51 Navies, they look like nickel, but they would have probably been silver plated then, right?
I think so. I mean, who's to say? But it would have been more common in that era, that pre-70 era, to have silver plating. I know that much. I wish Snapper was here because he's got all the history on that. But Doug Dukes did say the first 8,000 Colt single-action armies were military only, so it was a while before civilians got them.
Right.
Let's see.
Let's see. Here's a picture of his original one that's at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. It's not plated, and it's got an ivory grip.
I'd always thought his guns were plated.
But I think there's a lot of them out there that are not actual.
And you have to remember that during the era where he died, he was actually carrying Smith & Wesson Model 2 armies, and they very well could have been plated too.
And they had one of his guns up there in Deadwood, and I don't remember it being plated.
Huh.
All right, guys. We'll throw this one to AR American first because I know Duke and I have answered this one quite a few times, but we'll get Sheldon AR American's word on it. Which manufacturer would be the better cap and ball revolver, Pietta or Uberti?
I like the Pietta as far as I think the metal just seems to be harder. Like my race gun, it's a Pietta. And when I made that, the metal was like the bolt mat, filing it to shape it, and that was a lot harder than the Cimarron, the Uberti open top that I did. That Man with No Name, I turned it into a race gun. But if you're looking for like more historical, Uberti seems to hide all their markings better, and they look more historical. So it depends on what you're going to do with it. I like both of them. I don't like have a preference as far as if for just a gun to shoot, carry around or whatever. I don't really have a preference. Now, if I'm building a race gun, then I prefer the Pietta.
I think that pretty well echoes both Duke and I's sentiments on the subject.
If you're going to buy something to shoot a lot, buy a Pietta. If you're going to buy something for historical reenactment, buy a Uberti. Because Uberti will wear out.
What do you think, Sheldon?
I think they're both good. They both have their ups and downs. Like I think all three of you said. If you want the pretty one, go for Uberti. If you want the one that'll get the job done, Pietta. I use both. I think I ran around with a Pietta longer. So.
Yeah, but now he's carrying a Colt 2nd gen. So
it's kind of like this for us reenactors. I mean, you've got the cheap mainstream uniforms, like if you're doing Civil War reenacting, and then you got the better mainstreams, and then you got the really good stuff. So Pietta's kind of down on the mainstream. Uberti's kind of in that middle of pretty darn good. And then you got people like Garrett that show up with an original 1860 at an event, and then that's about as real as it gets.
I have to make up for the fact that my clothes are down on the Pietta level.
That was funny though. Yeah, show up and the chief ranger there looks at Garrett and he says, "Well, we really discourage the use of original guns, but they're yours. You can do whatever you want with them."
It wasn't like I was going to fire that 58 or that 50 caliber rimfire very much. So,
right.
Let's see. Grey Wolf said most depictions you see of the battle indicate troops had abandoned the long guns and were using their sidearms. Oh, talking about Little Bighorn. Yeah, the thing about depictions of the battle is nobody was there that made those depictions of the battle.
Here's the one thing I got against that dropping the long guns and using the sidearms. Yes, they dropped the long guns. They didn't throw them on the ground because it's cavalry. They're on a strap around their side. So they're going to let that carbine go and draw the pistol.
That's
the
something.
That carbine's coming off them is when it's taken off of their dead body.
When a lot of people say, they should have had 7-shot Spencers or something, I'm like, they did have 7 shots. It was just in 2 guns.
Mm-hmm.
And those single action armies were way faster than anything they'd had up to that point as far as handguns were concerned. So, now there is that.
One of those things, they were outnumbered, they were outgunned, they were outfought. Because when you look at it, majority of the troopers are not battle-hardened troopers that know what the heck they're doing. They're fresh recruits out of Germany, out of Ireland. The one guy that was carrying messages was from Italy. These guys were brought over, sent to basic training. They were given 3 bullets and showed how to work the action of that gun. And that was it. Accuracy was not a concern with the military at that time. Marksmanship program did not exist. If you could fire 3 rounds, you were a good soldier in the eyes of the Army at that point.
And
Most of the officers had been there.
200 guys ran into a camp of not a count of women and children, like 5,000 people. I mean, ran right into the middle of it. Didn't go from the sides, didn't get just right smack in the middle of it. Now, and then went back up a hill with 0 cover.
Yep.
Dismounted.
And so
it's really hard to win this in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and then they're going up against warriors that a good portion of them fought Red Cloud's War.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They have fought the Army. They know the Army tactics. They know the terrain. They know the land. Yeah, you've got younger warriors that may not have been at any of those battles, but the thing of it is, they're from day one when they're a little toddler, they are bred. It was a warrior society. So you got hardened warriors on one side, battle-tested veteran warriors, and then you've got green soldiers on the other side. You could have gave those green soldiers Spencers. You could have gave them AR-15s and AK-47s, and it wasn't going to change the outcome of that battle.
Well, and I'll let Sheldon speak to this more because I've always wanted to hear your put on it. Those warriors had Sand Creek in the back of their mind anyway. And so I honestly think this was more of a, again, I've had people ask me, well, why don't you think they would have just packed up and ran? They couldn't at any point have just, they were doing that for family. What do you got on that, Sheldon?
I mean, it's a whole family thing, you know, your whole family's right there. You want to defend them, you know, everyone here will agree with that. And at that point, a lot of the, and at that point, a lot of those warriors, they just wanted to be left alone. Some of them were, you know, just out for the summer hunts. They were going to go back. And then, you know, then, you know, a lot of them just want to be left alone because they don't want to be on a reservation.
The mentality on both sides was, if the Army loses, we all die.
Mm-hmm.
If the natives lose, I die and my family dies because they've seen this before. They've seen this dog and pony shit before. It works both ways.
Yeah, because if you're an old enough warrior, you know, you probably could remember Blue Water Creek. You could probably remember, you know, the whole Red Cloud War incident. You know, you could remember Hart. You know, everything of the past 20 years. So, like Crazy Horse, he was a kid when, you know, the Grattan massacre happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, Battle Hardened Warrior, like Duke said, Battle Hardened Warriors. You know, you have White Bull. You know, his first fight was Fetterman, and he was 16. He was 26 at Little Bighorn. He has 10 years in him. And you know, he has a Winchester. He even talks about having like a 100-round cartridge belt. I think it was 2, but you know. And then the boys, like even Black Elk, he was 13. He didn't really fight, you know, but he killed someone there. So we basically have ranges from like 12 to 13 all the way up until, you know, mid-40s fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to look at it without modern lenses and just, it's very hard to understand how cheap life was.
Yeah. And like Duke said, like even the boys, the young boys, they would know how to use their bow and arrow because by the time they're 6, they're handed a bow and arrow and they're taught to go shoot grasshoppers, birds, you know, and shoot a grasshopper out in midair with an arrow. So
pretty good.
So yeah, and then your family's there, and you know you're just trying to enjoy this. You try to enjoy the summer hunts, and then you know here comes these idiots in blue.
Right. And the other thing is people forget is that a week before they had already fought Crook.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Crook at the Rosebud. That battle was almost even. I think the estimated warriors and the amount of soldiers there were just about even. And you get a battle that lasts 6 to 8 hours. And at the end of the battle, both sides sustain 10 casualties on each side. And Crook goes through 3/4 of his ammunition in one fight.
They thought Vietnam was bad.
3/4 of his ammunition. I'm not sure what the amount is, but usually when they go out, they're taking tens of thousands of rounds.
For what
With
was it,
them out
like
there.
15 casualties, maybe? Something like that?
For 10.
10
There were 10
casualties?
warriors wounded or killed. There were 10 soldiers wounded or killed.
Now, imagine how many
So-
rounds they'd have fired if they'd have had lever actions.
Oh my, they probably would have run out of
They'd have ran out
So
of
these
ammo.
warriors were able to check Crook with a full complement a week before, turn him around, send him back for him to have to wait for supplies to show up. And yet, if Benteen and Reno would have been with Custer on top of the hill with another 200 people, that would have turned the battle around. If Custer would have had time to dig in, that would have turned the battle around. No, if Benteen and Reno had been there, that many more dead bodies on top of that hill.
You want to know what would turn that battle around? If when those scouts had said, "Hey, they found that food they spilled on the trail this morning," Custer turned around and headed back as fast as he could go. Headed
No, the
back.
thing would have saved Custer if he would have took the Gatling guns, because them guns would have slowed him down so much he would have showed up 3 days later.
And they wouldn't have stayed there for another 3 days. They wouldn't have
And
enough
they were
grass.
packing up to leave. They were packing up to leave when he showed up.
Okay,
I
let's
think
see.
it was Grenell or someone who said that, like after the fighting happened, he had like 10 Cheyenne lodges show up like after everything was over. So,
Right.
and that morning he already had some Lakota taken off because they didn't want to hang around no more.
Yeah, because the thing is, Kate Bighead said that she was taking down her lodge
Hmm.
when he showed up. Because I mean, when you've got that many people in one area, there's a severe logistics problem.
And 3 or
Mhm.
4 horses
If you
per
figure
person.
it's a village of 10,000 people, there's going to be 50,000 horses.
Remember, they said
And
that
if anybody-
there's so much horses that look like worms.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
looks like
why
worms in the grass.
that is one of the reasons that it was like you can't even cover in the grass on
Now,
Last Stand Hill
I'm not
because
sure
there's no grass.
exactly how much a horse can eat in a day, but let's say it can eat a acre
lot.
in 2 days. You got 50,000 horses that they're going to be eating a lot of grass.
Hmm.
In fact, there are so many people there. I read somewhere where Sitting Bull had said nobody was allowed to hunt without his permission. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but yeah, they were straining the resources in that area.
Doc was wondering if when they on the count of the Henrys, are they basing it off the brass found or off of the? He has a good point here. It would be interesting to know if those were based on the firing pin strikes for the rim 44s because the Henrys would have had 2 versus.
Even with 2 firing pins, each firing pin is going to hit a little bit different than the other one.
Yeah, but he's talking about
Okay.
versus. You said it could have been some conversions, pistols
Well,
in 44.
The
is what he's talking
66
about.
and 7, the 66 and Henrys, they both have double pin.
Yeah, double firing pin.
And then any pistol has the single. Like,
Right. Yeah, and I didn't see anything on the pistols in there. And it didn't get that detailed on that website. In fact, I just ordered the book while we were sitting here talking, so I'll have more to that question at a later date, possibly on Tales of the Trails. But yeah, it said that there were, they're able to trace 200 different guns firing that. And if you read, the amount of guys that were trading guns illegally in that area, the Genesis, for example, when Crook was hiring scouts at Fort Laramie, he was told not to hire any of the Genesis because the Genesis were supposedly supplying the natives with arms and ammunition. Wouldn't have been surprised if the Rishaws were involved with some of that too, but they did hire Louis Rishaw and Charlie Rishaw as scouts. What was it? James Bordeaux's son was it Louis Bordeaux. He was up at Chadron running the little trading post there that's the dugout, and that got shut down because he was trading guns to the natives.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of guns being traded, and 66 Winchesters and Henrys at this time are getting pretty cheap because you got this fancy 1873 Winchester that's come out on the market, and so those other two have kind of gone down in price.
So what you're saying, Duke, is gun control didn't work back then either, right?
Nope.
No. Well, and the thing was, though, is that they were trading illegally, but it was not illegal to trade a gun to the natives. Like the guys that are running the trading posts at the agencies, they were selling guns and ammunition and powder to the natives. That was part of their allotment. They were allowed to do that. The guys that are doing it illegally are the ones that don't have a permit. They just go buy a wagon load of goods, go out into the territory, trade off with the natives, and make a profit without having a permit or paying the government their due.
Yeah. It is basically you only get in trouble if the Army catches you.
Yeah. They did not enact so any kind of like gun control of not anybody not being able to trade guns to the natives until after Little Bighorn. And President Ulysses S. Grant basically states anybody found in that area with more guns and more ammunition than one person ought to be caught for normal use. Basically, if you have enough that you could be selling it, it is to be confiscated as war material.
Yankee.
And that was in August. That was in August of 1876.
Yep. But I think what the long and the short of it is, we all agree. Everything I've read says there's about 200 Winchester-style repeating guns there. And that just flies in the face of this image that the History Channel puts out of 3,000. You know.
Well, you figure 200 Winchesters, they can each fire about 15 at their all full-length rifles, 15 rounds each.
Mm-hmm.
So 200 times 15, my math ain't very good, but it comes out to about 3,000 bullets.
Mm-hmm.
3,000 bullets. So you have 500 cavalry troopers up with single-shot rifles.
And pistols, and 6-shot pistols.
So when you have loaded guns, just in rifles, you've got 3,000 bullets against 500 bullets.
Well, it'd be 7 bullets. If you count the pistols, it'd be 7 bullets per man.
Yeah.
So
even
it'd be
then,
about 1,400. There's still twice.
Twice
and
as many bullets.
That's not counting all the Spencers and the muzzle loaders. And the,
right. That's just counting the lever actions. That's just counting the Winchester.
Yeah, it's kind of a moot point, really, because they could have been armed with nothing but bows and still won.
Like Duke said, though, if them 200 rifles that the Indians had, they knew how to use them and the other guys didn't, it wouldn't matter how many guns and how many bullets they had.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we said before, because everybody was like, well, if they would have stayed with the Spencer, they would have lived through that. And I'm like, They wouldn't. There's no.
It was like on that day I went when I had my Trapdoor. It was an 84. I was shooting it with my friend Thomas, and I showed him the quick details of how to shoot it. Because as soon as he brought it up, we were talking about that, the whole Little Bighorn thing, and I showed him how to work the rifle. And he said, "How do you aim it?" I said, "Just point down the barrel, line up your sights and shoot." Anything else? I was like, "Oh no, you got the Army training, so."
You got your 3 shots per year, and it's so funny because Scott Shula and I've talked about this a little bit. How drastic military doctrine changed between 1876 and 1877. It's like by 4 years later, by 1882, the entire doctrine now is built like he would say. They determine the drop of the bullet by the barometric. Was it the humidity rate? And it's like, and after that, it's like you're going to hit a man at 600 yards, or you're not going to qualify. So it's like, and we developed what becomes one of the most accurate rifles in the world in the 1884, and so it's kind of amazing how much that changed. But like you said before, Little Bighorn, it's like 3 shots a year, 4 shots a year, maybe. for practice.
And the funny thing was my trapdoor was a chamber was ringed, so when you pull up the plate to get the extract moving, the shell stuck in there. I was like, that's the other issue. And at the time I didn't know that the chamber was ringed. So
yeah, no, they don't stick. A good gun with good brass, it won't stick. It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Let's see. Shot Sheila said, how many conversions were used by the military for how long? I don't know because I never got that far in my studies.
There was 1,000 1860 Colts sent back to Colt by the United States Army to be converted. And if I remember right, they were issued down in Texas.
Doug Dukes probably knows.
Then because at about the same time, they converted about the same number of Sharps to 50-70. They were issued down in Texas. For whatever reason, about that time, a lot of stuff was issued down in Texas. Because what was it, Garrett? The 1,000 or the 300 50-70 carbines.
320. 320.
320. Where did they wind up?
Well, the last 20 definitely ended up in Texas, but a lot of them did end up in Texas. I'm still up in the air on exactly how many of those did, but the shipment was for Texas.
So most of them went to field trials in Texas. Why Texas? I do not know. But yeah, majority of anything that was being field trialed at the time went to Texas first.
Yeah. Stephen Sheet said, good evening, everyone. No apologizes 2018 said there was a guy at a gun show that had a trapdoor that was nickel plated, which he claimed came from the VMI Virginia Military College. It's very possible. Like I said, there's only a handful of them, and they were sent to Leavenworth to start with and a few other places to test. They would have been 68s and 50 caliber, but a lot of times later on, those colleges and ROTC programs, even in the 1900s, they had those as parade guns and whatnot. And a lot of times, especially if it's a 45-70, that could be considered a parade gun that they got nickel plated just for erosion protection. Shot Shula said, Piettas are better. Shoot better. Ubertis are prettier. Tiger Left Pleaser said, Pietta is more affordable. It works. Uberti looks better but costs more. Yeah, Pietta clothes fit better. Uberti is a bit thicker in the cylinder wall, but not sure either will live long and prosper when loaded with buffalo boar. Yeah, Revere, he said, interesting take. Modern Americans don't respect how well and hard the natives fought. Respect. Yeah, we give credit all to Custer for losing the battle. Very seldom do we give credit to the natives for winning it.
Yeah.
Was Custer's rolling block at the battle, or did he leave it at the fort? That's a good question. I thought he had it.
From what I've seen, his 50-70 rolling block was there.
Yeah. Have any of you read Andrew Garcia's story?
No, I have not.
Would stink if you were moving houses and moving with your collection. Revere said, did 7th Cavalry just come off reconstruction duty, no combat experience?
There were some of them that went on reconstruction duty. I'm trying to remember.
Well, how many of those guys were still there from the 68 campaigns and that kind of stuff?
Not very many. It was something like 75 to 80% of the 7th Cavalry in 76 was new recruits. Because the 7th Cavalry is mustered in 1866 with new recruits. So recruits are recruited for 5 years. So in 71, it's going to be, most of them are going to muster out if they don't re-enlist, and then you're going to get new badges in. Well, guess what? 5 years from 71 is 1876. Most of them are getting recruited in.
Yep. Doug Duke said, why Texas? One word, Comanche.
That's true.
Yeah, by 1870s, a lot of that northern stuff's tamed down a lot. Well, I would say tamed down. We got a little Bighorn, obviously, but there's a lot more fighting going on in the south. Shot Shula said, talking about the military doctrine change after Little Bighorn, Blunt's books covered all of that. Air, temperature, humidity, and elevation, and more. His books have table for all of it. They even studied how, he said, even how the humidity affected muzzle velocity depending on the humidity in the room when they were being loaded. So that's the extreme they went to for getting those guns to shoot.
Right. So on the reconstruction duty, there were several companies that were deployed to South Carolina from 1871 to 73, and then to Louisiana from 1874 to 1876. But keep in mind, that's not the entire 7th, because at the same time in 73, the 7th is up on the Yellowstone expedition where they're mapping the railroads from Fort Abraham Lincoln over. And then in 74, they're on the Black Hills expedition. So the 7th was broken up. They were brought back together in 76 at Fort Abraham Lincoln, 75 or 76.
And the funny thing about that Yellowstone campaign is you don't think of Custer's cavalry using single shot bolt actions, but they did.
Yeah, that was one of the exceptions on the trial guns being sent to Texas. Is the 7th got those bolt actions?
Yeah, Ward Burton's. Guns of the West said Happy Independence Day. Hi, Dustin.
Hey, Dustin.
Gray Wolf said Andrew Garcia had a tough trip through Paradise Valley in Montana. Garcia was a young kid that met, I think he said Bridger, but he spelled it Bringer, I think, and he went mountain man very late. His story was written from his personal diary, mid-1900s, some contended info.
Excuse me.
So there, we caught up on comments finally. Oh, man. So, I had a thought there. How many times do you see Colt conversion coming up in native hands? Sheldon?
Only ones I seen were some Navajos when they were scouts.
Yeah.
Southwest tribes, but up here, I don't think really. I mean, I don't think they were. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say what they had and what they didn't have.
They didn't write that down very often, huh?
No, they talked about like muzzleloading, revolvers, the 1860s and stuff. They talk about those, but they don't really say, cartridge 6-shooters until later.
Okay, so on the 1879 ordnance report of arms surrendered by the natives was 125 revolvers and single-shot pistols, all but a converted Colt and a single-shot Remington rolling block were percussion. So in 1879, they turned in one converted Colt.
That makes me wonder how prolific handguns were for them.
I know, like the revolvers became they were sought after. I think Carrington's second wife or first wife wrote how the Crows have a bunch, and then the Colt and Cheyenne most likely had a good chunk because you had 6 shots and they weren't worried about killing game humanely back then. I heard they were really sought after for buffalo hunts.
Well, if I was an Indian and I had a Colt conversion and I had a cap and ball, I'd be trading the cap and ball, and I wouldn't be giving up the conversion.
Burying that one under the floorboards. That's what's so difficult about the 79 accounting. We have it all, but we don't have it all.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, and you look in the 1870s, yeah, you can get the guns and ammunition. As I said, you can get the long runs with the ammo, but a lot easier to get powder and lead and percussion caps. So that's why you're still at that time going to see a lot of cap and ball revolvers. It's just because
I
It's cheaper.
saw.
You take a few buffalo robes in, you get a couple of kegs of powder, some lead, and some caps.
I saw Nicolas Cage. All you got to have is some powder, some lead, and a big hammer.
I knew he was going to say that.
Oh man. Justin G, did you like the list I sent? Yeah, I did. I've actually had a chance to go through a couple of the first two with the Graw and the 71 Mauser. I believe it's the 71 Mauser. And it was funny because Ian over at Forgotten Weapons put out a video on the Graw, the single shot rifle, French rifle, and he said it was unequivocally better than the Trapdoor because his speed was 10 seconds faster with that single shot bolt action to get so many shots out. I had to argue that because I have a video of Jake from Everything Black Powder running his Trapdoor against Ian and beats him using proper technique as far as up, down, up, down, up, down. And Jake just smoked that single shot bolt action with his Trapdoor. And that was the 68, which is the slowest Trapdoor to use because the door doesn't go all the way forward. So I had to argue that I would argue that point with Ian just a little bit, but it was a really good video. I wouldn't argue with Ian, but I have to argue the fact that Jake actually outran you with like not a lot of experience either, just a couple times of shooting that gun. So
I'm gonna have to run, guys. So I'll catch you all later.
All right,
All right, see you.
All right, have a good one, Duke.
Yep.
A Tiglath. However I say that name. Yeah, we kind of did a spoiler-free talking about it at the first of this if you want to go back and look at it. Grey Wolf said, I love muzzleloaders actually showed the wounded ball at their last I'm not sure. Oh, pounded ball. Yes, yeah, the pounded ball. Pound it down the barrel. Let's see. Did you see the crazy flintlock repeaters he covered the other day? Yeah, I saw that video. I haven't got a chance to watch it all the way through. Grey Wolf said, Tough Trip Through Paradise, 1878, 1879 is the autobiography of Andrew Garcia, a man of Hispanic descent who was born in El Paso but moved north to Montana, 76 and became a mountain man. Cool. Well, guys, we probably ought to wrap this up. We're almost 2 hours in, and I'm pretty sure the AR is an hour behind us.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty tired.
Ahead.
But it's always fun coming on. I always enjoy it.
No, it's always interesting when we have you and Snapper because we run the gambit of what the time zones are in the United States all the way. Snapper's usually just getting wound up at about 10 o'clock because it's only 8 o'clock for him.
Yeah, it's 11:30 for me.
Yeah.
It's only 9:30 here. So. Wish it was 11:30. It'll only give me a half hour before I go home.
It's not 10:30, Sheldon?
Nope.
Oh, you're in Mountain Time?
Yeah, I'm like on the very edge of it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you and Duke are in the same time zone too. So
I always learn stuff when I come on your guys' show too, because like I said, I never got into the history until I started meeting up with you guys and talking to you and that.
Well, one of these days we're gonna have a live chat just about elephant rifles and how cool they are.
That'll be cool.
Need to do that.
Too bad we can't show nothing on live, you know.
I'm gonna figure out how to do a Rumble, and I know a lot of people wouldn't follow us over there, but I want to figure out how that Crowder does that, where he has the YouTube dump button, where it just shows a screen, and then everybody that wants to go see the guns can go see them on Rumble. I'd like to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to do a live stream, actually showing, shooting it and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because I just loaded up ammo for the 458 lot. I've got ammo for the 450 Nitro Express.
What powder do you use? H110 or something? Not H110, it'd be rifle powder, I guess.
No, the only thing I could find the last time was Accurate 2230. We still don't have a whole lot of smokeless powder around here.
What's your preferred powder?
H4198.
What, you getting pretty good velocities?
Yeah, for the 450 Nitro Express at H4198, really just seemed to be a really good powder for that.
Mm-hmm.
And about $13 a shot. It's way cheaper to reload it.
So nitros weren't original black powder cartridges, were they? Nitro.
No, originally, well, you had the 450 Nitro Express, but before that, you had the 450 Black Powder Express. It was a black powder cartridge. Some of them were developed during cordite, which, from what I understand, cordite was kind of like in between black powder and smokeless.
Brown
And then
powder.
some of them was just smokeless powder. But a lot of your big elephant guns were originally black powder cartridges.
Mhm.
That's why if I did it, I'd want something in black powder. Probably a standard 45-70, 50-70, even though those aren't technically elephant rounds. But
there's been times when, like when was it 2007, 8, we went through that ammo shortage and powder shortage and that. And I was loading my 450 Nitro Express with black powder, and it still shot. I mean, it still got some pretty good velocity and penetration with black powder,
Yeah.
I saw that EAA has a double barrel 45-70. Mike Bellevue wrote an article about it, but I don't know how common it'd be to get in the States. It might be something you have to order.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't mind a double rifle.
I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'll figure it out eventually. Said waiting for you on Rumble. There's already 211 Bang Bang channels on Rumble, but the trouble we have is it won't let us upload our backlog of videos over there anymore. So we basically have to re-upload everything from scratch.
I stopped doing the Rumble thing because nobody watched it. I mean, there was just nobody watching anything on Rumble, it seemed like.
It's easier to they're all there for politics, and it's hard for a historic firearms channel. But we got to do it because otherwise we won't have nothing. We have an active Rumble right now. We've been uploading to, so I just don't know how to. I got to reset everything to stream to it. Let's see. Get through a few more of these comments before we go. Let's see. One guy said, "Great show, thanks." Ungrateful Peasant said, "Evening." Shot Shield said, "I have a channel for black powder on Rumble. It's way better than dealing with YouTube." Hey, why don't you email me a link to that then? Because I don't know what it is. I've never seen it.
Ungrateful Peasant's a pretty good guy. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good to meet you, Ungrateful Peasant. I gotta ask, Salvatore, do you have a YouTube channel? I've never even asked.
I mean, this is my one YouTube channel. It has a bunch of dumb videos I uploaded 14 years ago.
I never even thought to ask. I never advertised you or anything. I was just sitting here thinking,
no,
he has a YouTube channel, but I've never even looked at it. Everything I've seen.
I mainly just upload dumb videos. I think there's like I said, this dumb videos. I was thinking about starting a different channel and doing things because, like, I wanted to talk about when Duke was here, but he had to vanish. Because you guys were talking about Little Bighorn, I wanted to go to the Warbonnet Creek area that's pretty close by.
Yeah.
And basically go and check all these little skirmish areas that not a lot of people talk about. Like on my way back from Kansas, what my plan was to go to Massacre Canyon and then Sand Creek, and then once I got to Massacre Canyon, I looked it up on my phone, and if I stayed on that interstate in Kansas, I would have got to Sand Creek. It was like 4 hours back, 4 or 5 hours back, the opposite direction I just came from. I was like, yeah, never mind.
Yeah,
well, don't worry about it too much. All I do is upload dumb videos too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you should upload some historic stuff because your niche is very underrepresented by everybody except Bad Hand, and so I think that it's a definite need.
Well, I was thinking, I know I talked to you about it, but even I kind of spaced out all of it, but was get like simple, like I'd say ledger drawing type animation going for like some of this stuff, because like around here, if I talked to people about Massacre Canyon, they're like, "What's that?" Even or Blue Water Creek, they're here, "What's that?"
Yeah,
like at least the majority. There's some people around here who know about them.
But, I was reading about that outbreak the other day, and I was surprised to find out like the people from my area were like half the guys that were chasing them. And everybody was like, we're going to go out and get them. Well, they snuck through the canyon, threw them on them. You know what I'm talking about down here at the Oklahoma-Kansas line? And they were just, the guys from my area were just disgusted. They said, we ain't following the Army all the way north of Dodge City.
That Fort Robinson outbreak, I didn't read much into that.
Well, when you talk about Massacre Canyon, that's what I think of as a.
Oh.
That's not what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the one in Nebraska where a group of Pawnee that were out buffalo hunting strayed too far into Lakota territory, and they got attacked. They got basically attacked, and the thing was that both sides had basically agent supervisors with them.
Just observing the war, huh?
Like, the one that was working for the Pawnee, I think he was only like in his early 20s, and he survived. He talks about how he remembers seeing this little girl holding onto her dead mom. He said he kicked himself for the rest of his life for not stopping picking her up. Basically, just left her back there, and the thing is that if you look at that battle, it said they're close by. They're still about almost like by car, almost an hour and a half away from each other. 2 hours.
Close by. Close is relevant.
Yeah.
Well, when you were in Nebraska, Duke was wondering if you were close by to Fort Larned. So.
Yeah. I was like, I'm at the border, but yeah, I wouldn't mind going back to Fort Larned, but yeah, it was like all these little things that no one really talks about, like Mud Springs, or I think it's Mud Springs. 11th OVC has one video on it. All these little ones no one really talks about. They always want to talk about Custer. They want to talk about Grattan. They want to talk about.
We'll do some videos on it, and I'll watch them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. You and Duke should be collaborating on some of this too, because you guys work so well together.
Like, I don't know, just all these little skirmishes, not all of them got written down, but just I remember when I was in high school, I was kind of getting into this, and it was like everyone wanted to talk about Little Bighorn. I was getting into it. I still get into it, but no one talks about how afterwards it was basically just picking them off one by one to get them back on reservations. And no one really talks about afterwards. They say, oh, next year Crazy Horse got killed. There's like that almost year, 4 months, like year and a quarter of time in that little area, time period no one talks about as much.
Yeah. Revere said, Revere 311 said he'd watch you. He said, about to say Sabater, he speaks good stuff.
Thank you. There's an area where I'm from called Slim Buttes, and when I heard about the Battle of Slim Buttes, I was like, holy crap, there's a battle on my reservation. I looked into it. They were talking about another area by the North Dakota border. I got excited there for a sec. Yeah, I got excited there for a second.
I'm going to have to get off of here, but definitely, start doing some videos on that stuff, because I'd love to watch your videos.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we got 1 minute until we hit 2 hours, so that's when I'm going to shut it down, guys. Exactly 1 minute. So if you got one last question, throw it out there, and we're going to get off of here in exactly 1 minute. But anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out here. I know everybody's got plans for tomorrow, and so was kind of a deal. We didn't do a lot of 4th of July talking. Maybe next year we'll get into that. But
I always appreciate you having me on. It's always a good time.
Well, I always enjoy when you do come on, and I need to have you on more often. I need to get back to regularly scheduled more guests, but it's one of those things that it's always last minute when I get it through together. As you know, I always talk to you guys. I think I emailed Sheldon the link this morning, but I think I called or I texted him at 2 minutes till, so he would jump on.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate you letting me on here, even though most of the time I started listening because I kind of forget that, I'm here.
Yeah. Shot Shul said, yes, we need more videos on the Indian perspective. When do over and under shotguns show up? That tends to be more of a 20th century thing, but over and under rifle shotgun combinations were definitely a thing all the way back in the 19th century. I can't tell you exactly when they show up, but I know they were around even in the muzzleloading days. Have a happy 4th. All right, guys, we're shutting it down. Thanks all for watching. Trust in God. Keep your powder dry.
Everybody have
Bye.
a happy 4th of July.